Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Korean Atlanta Mentorship. So in this video, I want to talk about my easy way to not get ripped off. And I actually learned this after having worked with big corporations. And one of the things that was most shocking to me, and again, this is just from years of experience, is finding out that they get ripped off a lot. Like you kind of think, oh, the big corporations of the world, they're all knowing, they have all the money, and they're always on the winning side. And I'm gonna just tell you, just from the inside perspective, um, a lot of them get ripped off, right? And an easy example of this is probably like Target Canada. So if you ever like look up to the failures of why Target Canada failed so quickly, one of the reasons, not the only reasons, is because they got, and you could argue about this, they got ripped off by a third party vendor, right? So think about this: if the big corporations that have all the money in the world um, and can do all the background checks and due diligence still get ripped off, what makes you think you could be more savvy than them? And so, having learned that lesson, one of the things that I came to understand is that it's very hard to not get like to determine if someone is going to rip you off, especially if you're working with somebody new, right? Now, one of the reasons why people get ripped off, and this is the same lesson from Target Canada, is they put all their eggs in one basket and they don't do things slowly. So, one of the things that I do is I sometimes allow myself to get ripped off in small doses, kind of like homeopathy. I don't know if you ever heard of like how homeopathy works. Basically, it's like, oh, get poison. I'm not, and also, disclaimer: I'm not saying get poisoned, but the whole theory of homeopathy is that you get kind of poisoned in small doses or something like that, and then that's supposed to help you. I'm not advocating that. I'm not saying you should do that, but that's kind of theory that I kind of operate with in terms of getting ripped off. So, for example, let's say I'm working with somebody completely new, right? Or maybe a new contractor, okay? I'm not going to pay them the full amount. What I'm going to do is I want to make sure that they do a small job first, right? And again, this isn't possible if you're like have a full rehab, but in general, I want to make sure that they're able to do a small job first. And I'll just give an example of $100 job, right? And it doesn't have to be like a general contractor, but let's say that I have $100 job that I want you to do. Now, if you can do that $100 job well, then I'll give you the $100,000 job, right? But too many people, including the big corporations, they just go all in because they've done the background and due diligence, and they don't just kind of take their relationships in steps and phases. Because again, if you can't do the $100 job well, why in the world would I give you $100,000, right? And so what I do is I kind of have like in my head a rip off budget. So if somebody is gonna do me wrong in small doses, that's kind of like the lesson I learned to make sure that I never work with this person again, right? And again, there's no way in general where you can like completely shield yourself from being ripped off, because if the big corporations who have all the money and power still get ripped off, what makes you think you're going to do better than them, right? But and this also is true with borrowing money as well, because think about banks. Banks spend a lot of money to send information and data to the credit bureaus about like whether you pay your bills on time. And even when they're applying and issuing new credit, guess what? There are people who still don't pay their bills. There are people who still don't pay their mortgages. They have to foreclose, right? Like they have all the information about your habits and they still lose once in a while, but the overall net effect is that they win, right? So again, people act like, oh, I'm never going to get ripped off or I'm the smartest person in the world. I expect, and this is the same thing with the big corporations too, expect to get ripped off in small doses here and there, but I'm just managing my risk, but I know the net effect is that I'm going to end up winning, right? And so, sometimes I got to learn this lesson in small doses. So even I have lent money to people, and I'm not going to lend them $20,000, right? But let's say I lend somebody $500, and they say, "Hey, I'll pay you back with interest," kind of like the way that the banks do it. When they're giving, when you don't have good credit, there's people out there who are still willing to lend you money, and when you pay them back with interest, yeah, they'll extend you credit. I've been ripped off with lending money. I lend people, you know, 500, $1,000, and guess what? They disappoint me and they don't pay me back, and you're never getting a loan from me again, just like the banks. And so here's the thing: lessons from big corporations is that the most successful ones know that they're going to get ripped off once in a while, but they just learn how to mitigate risk, right? And that's what I do in order to mitigate risk. So if I'm working with a new person and I'm going to work with them in small doses if I have no idea what they're able to do, and then, hey, we've built a relationship. I know that this person can do what they say that they can do, and then now I'm willing to take bigger risks. First it was $100 transaction. We've done that several times. Okay, let's do $1,000 transaction, 10,000, 20, right? 100, a million. But the worst thing that you can do is you work with a new person and say, hey, I'm willing to give you my retirement account and invest everything off of it without any sort of evidence that, hey, you have successful transactions together. And I'm saying this as a person of someone who actually offered me, millions of dollars to as to so that they were going to lend me money to do real estate, right? I mean, if I were in that guy's shoes, I wouldn't have made that offer. I don't know why they made that offer to me, but in general, I just would not make that offer to other people. So it's great that they're willing to lend me that much money in real estate, but to mitigate my risk, I want to make sure that we do small transactions first before I start to lend or partner up with people, right? You want to always make sure that's essentially your due diligence is that relationship building. And that's how banks work with regards to credit building, right? All right. Well, this is Corinne Atlanta Mentorship. So just an easy way, in my opinion, to not get ripped off doing transactions, but you're still gonna, get ripped off once in a while, or at least I think I will, right? I'm not the smartest person to shed, but the most important thing is you just want to learn how to mitigate risk. All right. All right. Well, if you're interested in joining a group, go ahead and click the Google form link below. Other than that, have a great day, and we'll speak next time.